Hello, this is a simple tutorial for Source Filmmaker for lighting and rendering. I'm going to show off some very basic three-point lighting techniques and show some settings to help you with making your renders look as good as possible with little to no editing or post-production. First, we're going to start by going over to Steam, and in the properties for Source Filmmaker, right here in the launch options, I would recommend copy and pasting this line, which you'll probably find in the description of this video. This will let you render in a 1920 by 1080p resolution as opposed to SFM's default 720p. Start by making a session. You don't really have to worry about the directory or the frame rate. And sometimes it doesn't center on like that. Okay, so down here in the timeline, I'd recommend loading into the motion editor just so that it it loads a little bit faster. I'm gonna load the map black_void. Perfect. So if you load this map, you're going to see nothing, and that's because there's no lighting anywhere. And that's perfect for us. So this is the work camera. If you want to move around, drag, just click on the screen and WASD, shift to move faster. That's it. And scroll wheel to zoom in and out, raise the field of view. Before we do anything, I'm going to go over to render settings. I'm going to turn off motion blur because it's really bad. And over here in the samples, instead of use camera settings, go to 1024 override. And there you go. Don't touch anything else in here, especially not the ambient occlusion, because that will absolutely demolish your render. I can show you what that looks like maybe. Here, we're going to right click and create a new camera and drag it down here. That will create a camera right in the middle of the map, or just the origin point of the map. Here, I'm going to make a new model, and I'm going to pick the Scout. I'd recommend using the TF_movies mod, or the hardware model here. These are higher poly, and although they do actually have minor differences in terms of their texture and stuff, these are the ones that Valve used in their Source Filmmaker videos, like Meet the Team and that other one that I can't remember the name of. um, so basically what we're going to do is just create a simple profile picture here. Here, if you click right here, you can switch between the cameras. Click the camera here, drag it over here or here, wherever you want. I'm going to just set it up here so that it looks nice. That will work. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to, it really helps to show the camera frustum right here and the focal plane if you want to use depth of field. That's just these white lines here. They really help, actually help, like, they tell you where the shot's going to be basically when you're not in that view. This one down here. What I'm going to do is create a new light and enable lighting. The light is pointed directly from where your main camera is. So here, I'm going to drag this into my work camera area. and I'm going to create the key light. This is the main light that will, light everything up. We'll just pretend like this is a sun. So I will bring it about here. And the sun is really, really big. So I'll do that. And that's the first light. Now you'll notice it's very, very bright. That is because we haven't changed any of the camera settings. So here, we're going to make sure that the tone map scale is actually at default, or a little bit brighter. Depends on what you want. The lower the darker, the higher the brighter. I'm actually going to pick something slightly brighter just because I want this to be a daytime kind of looking scene, which means it'll be brighter out, which means you'll have, a brighter image. And lower the bloom scale, not to default, 0. Turn that off. Because if you have it on, this is exaggerated, you can see how it bleeds out off of the edge of the model. And that's really, really bad if you have a green screen or something behind you. If you want bloom, I would recommend doing it in post. That way you can just make it look better anyways. So there we go. There's that. I'm going to edit this light a little bit because there is no shadow here. The radius is at 0. That's good. Maybe I'll just, instead of having it high FOV and far away, I'll just raise the intensity. Or no, I'll lower the intensity and bring it closer. You know what? I'm actually going to drag that down here and that there. So make sure you have the light selected. Zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. You can also just drag these sliders up here. I'd recommend not doing that though, because you have to do them both at the same time. There. That's our fake sun. So you'll see that these shadows here around his neck are pitch black. That's not good. So we're going to add in the fill light. This just helps you add a nice ambience. This will be like, let's say he's on a sidewalk. Sidewalks are bright, so the sun's bouncing off of it onto his neck. Now it's nice and bright. Doesn't really matter where you put these. You can put it down here. I mean, it does matter. But just for something this simple, really anywhere works. As long as it looks good, there's no right way to do it. Like that. And then we're going to add one more light. This will be the rim light. You don't need these. They just look nice. Just going to put one kind of where the sun is coming from. Now I'm barely looking at this view. I'm mostly looking up here and just using muscle memory. There. Now it is a bit bright, so I'm going to lower the sun a slight bit. I'm going to lower the fill light a slight bit. I'm going to raise this one. And The sun has very sharp shadows, so we're not going to touch its radius. The radius just um, essentially changes the size of. Pretend that one of the this is a spotlight. Pretend that the size of the bulb changes when you change this radius, because that's exactly what's happening. The fill light, I'm gonna raise that radius way up. That'll give it softer shadows, so I'll rebalance the intensity of that in just a moment. I'm switching between timeline views here because this is where it will quickly render it as more of a preview. Good enough. So we have the key light, the fill light, and the rim light. Now we're going to change the colors. There's no RGB values. It's just 3 sliders. So if we wanted a purple sun, we'd do that. If we wanted a green sun, we would lower the red and blue. If we wanted just a blue sky or just a very, very bright blue light, we would do that. The sun is slightly yellow, so we're going to remove. You see here, if you get rid of the blue, it turns yellow. So I'm going to get rid of most of the blue, or just some of it. Lower those a little. That's too much. It helps to remove these too. There we go. Fill light, probably fine. Yeah, it's okay. And rim light, I normally keep these pure white, but if you want, you can change the color of them. This is not a particularly sharper one. I like to add one more. Forgot you can't do anything if you're in this view. To go over here. I like to add one more light. Just to get the very, very edge of the face. Like that. If you think that's too sharp, just raise the radius. And it doesn't show up here, but if I go to that view, it gets a bit softer. And if I raise it all the way, there we go. That's nice. Kind of. I prefer them sharp though. But this is a good look too. Doesn't matter. It's all up to preference. I might actually keep it like this. I just discovered that. I think his hat up here looks a little bit bland. So I'll copy animation set for that light. Paste the animation set. Drag it down here. Switch to the right view. Make it so it's shining onto his hat a little. Can change the field of view. Position it however you want. There we go. Now, if you wanted one of these lights not to have shadows, you just right-click it and disable shadows, and you'll see it shines right through the hat onto his forehead. So like that. Not sure what's wrong with this. Oh, it's because the radius is too high. There we go. Looking nice. Lower that just a slight bit. Check it one more time. There we go. Now, does not hurt to save constantly, because this program is ancient and old and smelly. So, in just 15 minutes, I have a pretty decent looking character here. Now I'm just going to pose him a little bit, move that microphone out of the way. I will switch this to the camera view, this one to the work view, and for posing, I normally disable lighting, just so it's easier to see. Now, normally you would pose and then light, but I did it here just to get to the meat potatoes. Here, I'm just going to rotate that so it doesn't cover his mouth as much. And I'm going to grab his view target, which controls where his eyes are aimed, and raise that so that he's looking forward. If you wanted to move his head in this mode, you could stretch his limbs around, which looks a little bit funny. You can see how his eyes are always pointing at that dot that I moved earlier. You can also rotate it like that. Turn around. Have all sorts of fun. It's really fun to do this kind of thing. If you want to remove his hat, right click, set body groups, and hat, set body groups, hat, none. There you go, it's gone. Headphones are separate. There you go. Should probably turn on the lighting if I want it to look nice. There, very bright. I actually want it on though, so I'll put those back on. Not the skin. Set body groups. Headphones. Hat. If you want to change his team or give him Uber or something, you can go over to set skin. 0 is red, 1 is blue, 2 is red Uber. They are broken, actually, so you have to go onto the workshop and find a fix for that. And here, same with the blue. And set skin 4. That is from one of the Meet the Team videos. Probably expiration date, which is the one I couldn't remember earlier. It's either that or that's when you lose in competitive mode. They have different skins for that, I think. So there we go. There's all that. You basically know... I did not mean to turn that off. You basically know, like, everything at this point. Pretty simple program. It's not hard by any means. It's just a bit difficult. It's just like, not difficult, it's just a bit finicky is the issue because of how old it is and, you know, unsupported and all. What else could we add? We could pose his face. So turn lighting off. For face posing, I like to be in the big view. Up there and the little view down here. If I wanted to frown, just drag the slider and now he's mad. If I want him to flare his nose in various manners, I can do that. I want to raise his jaw, clench it, whatever. All sorts of options here. A lot of them. You can have all sorts of fun with that. Now, one last thing. Actually, no last thing. We're done. Save. Turn on the lighting. Go over here. Looks good. We're going to go to File. Actually, I'm going to go out of this view because sometimes it crashes if I do that. I'm going to go to Export as, if you choose Poster, all the bloom will be gone, and I think some other things don't work. Image, I haven't tried it. Movie is the one I'm going to use. We're going to do export it as an image sequence. Turn that off because you don't need an audio file. PNG works. You can also choose JPEG, which I would not recommend due to compression. TGA and whatever a PFM is. Here we're going to change this to 1080p, which is what that launch option was for. Duration is going to be custom. And seconds, we're going to change that to frames and set this last number to frame number 1. Now, more options. This is just your overrides and whether or not you want to draw certain source thingies like particles and NPCs and specific models and all sorts of those things. Not sure what any of this does. Just I wouldn't recommend touching anything in the more options area except for the samples. And pick a location to find it. Normally it'll go to Source Filmmaker game user mod elements sessions. I'm going to change this to something else. If I can type. Fine, I'll just move there manually. Just put it on my desktop in this folder. Call it scout dash or underscore tutorial. Save. And there we go. It'll be a PNG in a folder on my desktop that I made previously. It's gonna load a little. It'll look a little bit funny. And if I minimize all this, drag this over here. There's a text file here. It's just giving you settings that you used. And here you go. Finished render. 1080p, all its glory. Everything that you saw in here is now in this picture. If you're wondering what the 6 numbers at the end are, that's the frame number. It starts at 0 and goes up. So since we rendered from frame 0 to 1, it's just that one frame, so it's only going to do 0. You don't need those. You can get rid of them if you want. Doesn't matter. It's just a file. And now, since I'm feeling fancy, I'm going to make it my desktop background. And there you go. Your nice render. Now I'm going to show you how to add a watermark if you want it. So I'll drag these back down here. Put that up there. I use Krita. You could use Photoshop or GIMP or whatever photo editing tool that you have. Krita and GIMP are both free. Photoshop is not. And it's buggy on my computer, so I won't show you. I'm just going to drag this in here. Done. I'm going to add a watermark. So I'll go up here, add the text tool. It just says placeholder text. I'm going to change this to Slimes McDingle. And I have the TF2 font installed, which you can find on the wiki if you want it. I'm going to raise the font up to 48. Doesn't matter. Save, close. I'll put it right here on his shirt. You'll see it's kind of hard to see though because it blends in a bit too much. And it's a watermark. There's nothing really stopping anyone from just editing that out. So to make it slightly harder, up here, I'm going to change it to overlay. And there you go. It'll take the same, well, I don't really know the math behind it, but it overlays over it. And if you want, you could go to layer style, color overlay, change this to normal, and make it red. Except I'm silly, and that's not how layer styles work. So I'll actually flatten the layer, get rid of the style. Now it's back to normal, so I'll make that an overlay again. And there. You see how it's bright and bright spots, visible, darker spots. Done. A nice render with a watermark. And I'll call this scout underscore tutorial underscore watermark. I'm not going to save it. That's the original, and that's the watermark. All right, you're done. Don't need to copy this tutorial exactly. Again, it's art, so anything you want to do, you can do it. This is just how I found making things the quickest and nicest looking way possible. Again, no editing necessary unless you want to add a watermark. You can still go through and make tweaks to, like, everything's kind of polygonal, so if you really want, you could round this out if you know what you're doing. But there's also just higher poly models. Don't really worry about that, honestly. Okay. Thank you for watching. I'm done. Bye-bye.